Well, it's that time of the week where we always like to turn our attention to an in-house guest who we actually have with us right now. It is Chris Swift of Swift Trading Incorporated, based in Nashville, which is very convenient.
It is.
So, how was your weekend?
Oh, fantastic. Beautiful weekend. Got to see a little sunshine this weekend.
Lots of flooding south of town.
Yes, pretty bad.
Swift water rescues and the whole bit.
Pretty bad, yeah. Some guys had some fun this weekend.
Oh, my goodness. And then you go up further north and wintry weather and blizzards and all sorts of stuff. So let's see if any of that has any impact here on the grain trade.
Right.
And, of course, a lot of other stuff to talk about as well. Of course, we have things going on with China and the weather. And, of course, USDA getting caught up on data. Let's take a look at what corn is doing. And we also had overnight export sales reported for corn. So on that sales total, we'll get to that in a second, the corn is actually not responding to it. And, Chris, it seems like a curse. Every time we get an export sales announced overnight, that market will always go lower, almost every time, ever since first of the year. So March corn down 1.50 cents at 3.73 3/4, and December new crop down a penny at $4.75, just hanging on to that $4 benchmark by its fingernails. What I was talking about was the overnight export sale of corn to Mexico. It was 279,400 tons. It was a fairly hefty sale, and yet the corn turned around. It had been higher overnight, and then it went lower after this news came out. Go figure. Soybean trade, how's it holding up here this morning? Well, in the early going, we have the March soybeans 5 1/4 higher at 9.15 1/2, and that is almost on the low of the day. Goodness, Chris, we had a high of 9.21 earlier this morning, and we have July up a nickel. Now, if we take a look here at our wheat trade, let's go ahead and jump to the wheat. And in Chicago, we have the March contract 13 lower. Man, all kinds of pressure in the wheat trade today. 4.73 3/4. July down 11. What about Kansas City wheat? What's it up to? Well, we have the March down 11 at 4.47 1/2, and July down 10 at 4.64 1/4. I wonder if Minneapolis is doing the same thing or not here today on the spring wheat. Well, it's down 9 on March at 5.57 3/4. July down 8 at 5.60 1/4. Why are they picking on wheat so much? What's going on?
I don't know, but, you know, last week we had a big decline in wheat. We lost a little bit over 40 cents in last week's trade, and corn and beans pretty much held their own while wheat did. And I'm not real sure, other than just the large world wheat, and customers around the world tend to be going everywhere but the United States for a lot of their wheat purchases.
Apparently, as far as the market's concerned, it didn't go down enough yet, huh?
No, apparently not, because it's right back testing either contract lows or new contract lows in some of the months right now.
My goodness. What about the soybeans and the corn here this morning?
I think still tariff issues on that. We have lots of supply still on hand, and although some resolve may have come to extend that March 31st or March 1st deadline for additional tariffs, those tariffs are still on, and right now we still happen to have plenty of beans on hand, and the harvests are right around the corner in Brazil and Argentina. So I think we still got plenty of beans on hand right now.
You know, last week I had heard that the basis had improved in the Midwest on corn and soybeans just because the farmers couldn't get them to town.
Right.
I can't imagine that has improved this week.
Probably not this week, but next week I think for sure there will be. It looks like some of this weather is coming out of it next week, so I believe we'll be able to get some grain movement out there.
Okay, Chris, we'll come back here in a moment, and we'll take a look at our livestock trade as well. Our guest is Chris Swift, and we'll be back with Chris right after this. I want to pick up where we left off in our discussion with Chris Swift of Swift Trading Incorporated in Nashville. And as we take a look at the livestock trade here, Chris, I want to look at our cattle market. Of course, we have the cattle on feed numbers that came out Friday after the close. And I believe we actually have those numbers for everybody, too. The on-feed number came out at 102%. Pretty close to expectations. The placements number came out at 98%, while the trade was looking for something over 101. And marketings were very close to expected at 99%. Now, the market action so far today, let's go ahead and take a look at our live cattle trade. Currently, you have the nearby live cattle, the February 20 higher, the most active April contract, 75 higher at 129.63. And on the other hand, you take a look at feeder cattle this morning, and here you go. We have the nearby March 40 higher at 143.30, April up 55 at 145.85. So they seem to be holding their own, while the lean hogs seem to be jumping off a cliff today. Let's take a look here. April down 208 again at 53.38, and May down $1.40 at 64.08. Can you say reminiscent of a week ago?
Pretty close to it.
Even
though we had a really strong rally and what looked to be a big outside reversal day last week, and now we start back trading a little bit lower this week. But the lean hog index continues to drop, and until we see that lean hog index finally hit a bottom and start to turn around, all the premiums in the futures will just continue to be attracted to that index figure.
So we talked earlier in our broadcast about the fact that there are some plants shut down in Iowa, I understand, the pork processing plants. Maybe reduced schedules up in Minnesota, too, on account of the weather. I would imagine that's going to lead to a backlog of supplies.
Yes, backs them up.
All right, so longer term, how optimistic are you as we get into spring and summer here?
Well, I'm very optimistic.
You are?
We have significant issues with the African swine flu, and it is spreading all across Asia, and eventually you start to remove the psychological aspect of the disease, and you'll begin to focus on the need for pork protein, and I think that's when we'll start to see Asia and some of the other countries come back into the U.S. for some of their pork.
Well, the Dow is back over 26,000 again.
Yeah,
and it used to be that was an indicator on demand for higher priced meat cuts.
Right.
Does that still apply or not?
To beef, it probably does. I think right now what we're seeing a lot of is still our economy is so good that there could be some people just passing right by the pork and the poultry items and going right straight to the beef aisle. And we see beef prices from the box side have remained pretty steady. They're up in the $216, $217 range now for choice boxes. And as long as we keep that moving like that, I think the consumer is telling us that the economy is doing real well to be able to walk past some of those other proteins and pick up beef.
All right. Well, Chris, thanks for coming in again.
Absolutely.
And, always great to pick your brain about
I
things.
thoroughly enjoy it.
I appreciate it. So thanks for
Yes, sir.
letting the panel stump you today. All right. So that's the way things are shaping up here early on a Monday anyway.
All right.
The weakness continuing in the hogs.
Well, gentlemen, as always, thank you very much.